Ibn Bājja, also known as Avempace, was a prominent philosopher from Andalusia who lived during the 12th century. His intellectual contributions were deeply influenced by Aristotle's works, particularly in ethics and metaphysics, but his ability to blend Greek philosophy with Islamic thought made him a unique figure. In his work, Ibn Bājja explored themes related to the perfection of the soul, the role of the intellect, and the cultivation of virtues such as wisdom, self-discipline, and moral integrity. His teachings offer an intellectual framework that resonates deeply with the practices of Ramadan. Ramadan is more than just an act of fasting for Muslims, it is a time for deep reflection, purification, and seeking closeness to God. Fasting, in particular, is seen as a way to elevate one's spirit, strengthen the bond with God, and engage in self-discipline. In the light of Ibn Bājja's philosophical ideas, Ramadan becomes an opportunity to align intellectual pursuits with spiritual growth. His life and philosophy shed light on how one can use this sacred month to refine the mind and soul, and how fasting, solitude, and reflection can lead to a more profound understanding of self and the divine. The goal of this video is to delve deeper into Ibn Bājja's teachings and their potential influence on how we approach the intellectual and spiritual dimensions of Ramadan. By examining key aspects of his philosophy, we can better appreciate the intersection of intellect and spirituality, offering a guide for personal transformation during this holy month. 1. The life of Ibn Bājja, a philosopher's journey. Ibn Bājja was born in 1085 CE in the city of Saragossa, in the heart of Al-Andalus, modern-day Spain. Al-Andalus was a vibrant intellectual center during the Islamic Golden Age, characterized by a synthesis of Islamic, Jewish, and Christian thought. This cultural and intellectual environment greatly influenced Ibn Bājja's development as a philosopher. He was well versed in the works of earlier philosophers like Aristotle, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Al-Farabi, integrating their ideas into his own unique system of thought. Ibn Bājja's philosophy was primarily concerned with the perfectibility of the human soul through intellectual and moral development. He believed that through the cultivation of reason and wisdom, an individual could achieve a state of inner harmony and intellectual clarity. This pursuit of excellence was, for Ibn Bājja, the highest form of spiritual fulfillment. He conceptualized the ideal human being as one who sought to live in alignment with both reason and virtue, achieving happiness through self-discipline and the refinement of character. Although his works don't directly address Ramadan, Ibn Bājja's views on the intellect, purification, and virtue provide an excellent framework for understanding how the practices of Ramadan can help individuals grow both intellectually and spiritually. His idea of the perfect soul, which is cultivated through intellectual rigor and moral development, parallels the aims of Ramadan, where fasting serves as a tool for spiritual purification, self-discipline, and moral development. By viewing Ramadan through Ibn Bājja's lens, we understand that the month is not just an act of temporary fasting but a deeper, philosophical practice that invites reflection, growth, and intellectual elevation. Ramadan becomes not just a time for bodily restraint but an opportunity to refine both the mind and the soul, moving towards perfection in the same way Ibn Bājja envisioned. 2. The concept of knowledge and the soul in Ibn Bājja's philosophy. For Ibn Bājja, knowledge was not merely a tool for understanding the external world but a transformative force that shaped the soul. He argued that the pursuit of knowledge was essential for the development of both the intellect and the moral character of an individual. The mind and the soul were intricately linked, and intellectual growth was inseparable from spiritual purification. To Ibn Bājja, the act of acquiring knowledge was, in itself, an act of purifying the soul. It was through intellectual pursuits that one could achieve moral virtue, understanding of the divine, and ultimately happiness. In his philosophy, Ibn Bājja described the soul as a complex structure that needs to be aligned with reason and intellect in order to reach its highest potential. The soul is divided into various faculties: the rational, the appetitive, and the spirited. The rational faculty, which is engaged in the pursuit of knowledge and truth, must govern the other faculties. This balance is key to achieving the perfect soul, a state where the soul is harmonized and aligned with higher truths. The development of this harmony is achieved through intellectual engagement, the cultivation of virtues, and, importantly, a focus on self-discipline. In the context of Ramadan, the concept of intellectual purification through knowledge becomes highly relevant. During Ramadan, Muslims are encouraged to engage more deeply with religious texts, particularly the Quran, to increase their knowledge of the divine and their relationship with God. The practice of fasting acts as a means of purifying the body and soul, creating a space where individuals can focus more on spiritual and intellectual pursuits. Ibn Bājja's view that knowledge leads to purification aligns perfectly with the intellectual reflection that Ramadan invites. By engaging in reflection, prayer, and study during Ramadan, Muslims follow Ibn Bājja's advice to purify both the mind and the soul, leading to a deeper connection with the divine. Key lessons: the integration of knowledge and spirituality. For Ibn Bājja, acquiring knowledge was not a detached intellectual exercise but a pathway to moral and spiritual enlightenment. During Ramadan, fasting helps to create an environment where the pursuit of knowledge, whether through study or contemplation, becomes a spiritual endeavor. It enables believers to engage with deeper spiritual truths, thus aligning with Ibn Bājja's ideal of the perfected soul. Fasting as a tool for intellectual and spiritual purification, Ramadan provides an opportunity to clear away the distractions of the physical world and focus on acquiring knowledge of oneself and the divine. This intellectual and spiritual purification mirrors Ibn Bājja's philosophy that wisdom leads to a harmonious and virtuous soul. 3. Detachment from materialism and worldly desires. One of the central themes in Ibn Bājja's philosophy is the importance of detaching from materialism and the pursuit of physical pleasures. He believed that an excessive attachment to the material world distracts individuals from higher intellectual and spiritual pursuits. Material desires, such as the craving for wealth, power, and sensual pleasure, pull individuals away from the cultivation of virtues like wisdom and self-control. Ibn Bājja argued that intellectual and spiritual excellence requires a focus on higher, non-material goals. In his view, the physical world, while necessary for survival, should not become the focal point of one's existence. Instead, individuals must focus on achieving inner peace through intellectual development, moral growth, and a connection with the divine. Ramadan, with its emphasis on fasting and self-restraint, provides an ideal opportunity to practice this detachment from materialism. By abstaining from food, drink, and other pleasures, Muslims are reminded that material desires should not dominate their lives. Rather, they are invited to reconnect with their higher spiritual nature. Ramadan teaches that the satisfaction of worldly desires is fleeting, while the pursuit of spiritual fulfillment brings lasting contentment. Ibn Bājja's emphasis on detachment from materialism resonates deeply with the fasting practice of Ramadan, which provides a period of withdrawal from the physical world in order to focus on the cultivation of virtue, wisdom, and the soul's connection with God. Key lessons: detachment as a path to true happiness. For Ibn Bājja, true happiness was found not in material wealth or fleeting pleasures but in intellectual and spiritual fulfillment. Ramadan embodies this principle by encouraging believers to distance themselves from material distractions and focus on inner growth and self-discipline. Fasting is a practice of detachment. Fasting during Ramadan is a powerful tool for cultivating detachment from material desires. It allows individuals to experience firsthand the impermanence of physical pleasures and reinforces the idea that the pursuit of higher intellectual and spiritual goals leads to true fulfillment. 4. Virtue, self-discipline, and intellectual excellence. Ibn Bājja emphasized that the cultivation of virtue is essential for intellectual excellence. For him, the development of virtues such as patience, humility, integrity, and courage was directly tied to the growth of the intellect. He believed that intellectual achievements are not purely the result of cognitive ability but are shaped by the moral and ethical character of the individual. A wise person is not simply knowledgeable but also virtuous, and it is through virtuous living that the intellect can be fully actualized. Ramadan provides a unique opportunity to practice these virtues, particularly patience and self-discipline. Fasting requires immense patience, as individuals refrain from eating and drinking for extended periods. The ability to endure hunger and thirst is a direct exercise in self-control, which is central to Ibn Bājja's philosophy of personal growth. Furthermore, Ramadan encourages the practice of humility, as individuals recognize their dependence on God for sustenance and guidance. By fostering these virtues, Ramadan offers a path to intellectual and spiritual excellence. Through fasting, reflection, prayer, and acts of charity, believers engage in practices that purify both the soul and the intellect. This is in perfect alignment with Ibn Bājja's idea that virtue is the foundation for the cultivation of wisdom and intellectual greatness. Key lessons. Virtue as the foundation for intellectual growth. Ibn Bājja's philosophy asserts that intellectual growth cannot be separated from moral integrity. Ramadan fosters this by encouraging self-discipline, patience, and humility, virtues that are essential for both spiritual and intellectual refinement. Self-discipline and patience as pathways to wisdom. Fasting during Ramadan teaches individuals to develop self-discipline, which is crucial for intellectual growth. It also reinforces the importance of patience, which Ibn Bājja considered a foundational virtue in the journey towards wisdom and enlightenment. 5. The importance of solitude and reflection in Ramadan. Ibn Bājja placed great importance on solitude as a means of intellectual and spiritual growth. He believed that in order to reach higher levels of understanding, an individual must retreat from the distractions of the external world and engage in deep introspection. This solitude allows the individual to connect with their innermost thoughts, gain clarity, and achieve intellectual insights. It is in solitude that the soul can reflect on its purpose and align itself with the divine. Ramadan, particularly in its final 10 days, provides a unique opportunity for solitude and deep reflection. Many Muslims seek seclusion during these days, spending extra time in prayer and meditation, particularly in the mosque. This period of increased worship and reflection mirrors Ibn Bājja's view that solitude is essential for intellectual and spiritual development. During Ramadan, individuals can focus on their relationship with God, reflect on their actions, and engage in self-examination. Key lessons. Solitude for intellectual and spiritual clarity. Ibn Bājja saw solitude as a crucial tool for self-improvement. Ramadan offers believers an opportunity to engage in this solitude, creating a space for personal reflection, prayer, and intellectual growth. Reflection as a tool for purification. The act of self-reflection during Ramadan allows individuals to confront their weaknesses, acknowledge their mistakes, and refine their character. This mirrors Ibn Bājja's belief that reflection is essential for the purification of the soul and the development of intellectual clarity. 6. The role of emotions and desires in the pursuit of wisdom. Ibn Bājja understood human beings as inherently possessing both rational and emotional dimensions. While the rational faculties were central to the pursuit of wisdom, he also acknowledged that emotions and desires significantly impact an individual's ability to achieve intellectual and moral excellence. According to Ibn Bājja, emotions such as anger, jealousy, and attachment to worldly pleasures often cloud one's judgment and hinder the cultivation of wisdom. For Ibn Bājja, the key to intellectual and spiritual growth lay in mastering one's emotions and desires. He proposed that reason must govern the emotional self. This notion aligns perfectly with the practice of fasting during Ramadan. By fasting, individuals are encouraged to subdue their physical desires, such as the craving for food and drink, and transcend their emotional impulses, such as impatience and frustration. This process of self-restraint is a direct challenge to the power that desires hold over the soul. During Ramadan, individuals become aware of the immediate effects of their emotions, especially hunger, and must practice patience and resilience in the face of them. Fasting, therefore, becomes a training ground where emotions and desires can be brought under the control of reason, promoting intellectual clarity and emotional balance. Just as Ibn Bājja advocated for the dominance of rational faculties in achieving wisdom, Ramadan offers an opportunity to harness this process of emotional self-regulation for spiritual purification. Key lessons. The mastery of emotions. Ibn Bājja's focus on the governance of emotions reflects a vital aspect of Ramadan. Fasting allows Muslims to confront and control their emotions, turning a challenging experience into one that strengthens both the mind and the soul. The integration of emotional control and wisdom. Ramadan exemplifies Ibn Bājja's belief that intellectual clarity and spiritual purity are achievable when emotions and desires are kept in check. Fasting, by curbing the immediate desires of the body, enables one to cultivate deeper emotional maturity and wisdom. 7. The role of compassion and empathy in personal growth. While Ibn Bājja's works primarily emphasize intellectual growth, he did not ignore the importance of virtues such as compassion and empathy in moral development. He understood that intellectual excellence could not be divorced from social harmony and the well-being of others. For Ibn Bājja, the pursuit of wisdom required individuals to develop a sense of responsibility toward their fellow human beings, recognizing that human flourishing is interconnected. During Ramadan, the emphasis on charity, zakat, kindness, and support for the needy aligns perfectly with Ibn Bājja's teachings. The physical restraint involved in fasting heightens one's awareness of the needs of others, especially those who may not have access to sufficient resources. This awareness often leads to acts of charity, where individuals go beyond themselves to help the less fortunate. Ibn Bājja viewed the cultivation of empathy and compassion as integral to the development of intellectual and spiritual virtue. Through acts of kindness during Ramadan, Muslims not only fulfill their social and moral responsibilities but also enhance their own journey toward personal excellence. Empathy becomes a tool for emotional and moral development, creating a harmonious balance between individual and collective well-being. Key lessons. Compassion as a path to virtue. Ibn Bājja believed that intellectual excellence cannot exist without moral responsibility. Ramadan encourages this sense of social responsibility, prompting individuals to be mindful of others' suffering and take compassionate action. Empathy and intellectual development. Empathy is not just an emotional response, but a critical component of moral and intellectual growth. During Ramadan, Muslims practice both intellectual and emotional maturity by empathizing with the poor and underprivileged. 8. The role of reflection and self-examination in intellectual growth. Ibn Bājja placed great value on reflection as an essential tool for intellectual development. He believed that self-examination allowed individuals to recognize their intellectual shortcomings and moral failings, providing a pathway for improvement. This process of reflection was central to achieving the goal of becoming a philosopher king, an individual who not only possesses knowledge but also embodies virtue and wisdom. Ramadan, with its call for reflection and self-restraint, provides an excellent opportunity to engage in self-examination. Muslims are encouraged to evaluate their actions, intentions, and spiritual progress during the month of fasting. The reflective nature of Ramadan invites individuals to step back from their daily routines and contemplate their relationship with God, their personal growth, and their contribution to the greater good. Ibn Bājja's philosophy of intellectual growth through self-reflection is embodied in the practices of Ramadan. By fasting, praying, and engaging in introspection, Muslims are able to better understand their own character, correct their mistakes, and make conscious efforts to improve. This act of reflection and self-awareness aligns with Ibn Bājja's belief that wisdom arises from recognizing one's own limitations and striving to overcome them. Key lessons. Self-examination as the key to growth. Ibn Bājja believed that personal growth depends on a willingness to examine one's own life. Ramadan encourages this reflection, allowing individuals to assess their spiritual journey and strive for improvement. Reflection as a means of intellectual elevation. During Ramadan, the quiet time of reflection offers individuals a chance to elevate their intellectual and spiritual consciousness, following the same principles that Ibn Bājja outlined in his philosophy. 9. The importance of discipline in achieving intellectual excellence. Discipline was a cornerstone of Ibn Bājja's philosophy. He understood that intellectual and moral development require sustained effort, practice, and a rigorous commitment to growth. For him, discipline was not about adhering to external rules but about cultivating internal habits that allow the individual to focus their energy on higher pursuits. This commitment to discipline was integral to achieving wisdom and moral perfection. In Ramadan, discipline is central to the fasting practice. Abstaining from food, drink, and other physical needs during the daylight hours requires significant self-control. This discipline is not just about physical restraint, but also mental and spiritual discipline. Muslims must discipline their thoughts, emotions, and actions, ensuring that they align with higher values such as kindness, humility, and devotion to God. Ramadan becomes a practice in maintaining focus on what truly matters, using discipline as a tool for spiritual and intellectual growth. Ibn Bājja's philosophy underscores that true excellence, whether intellectual or moral, requires unwavering discipline. Ramadan becomes a perfect space for cultivating this discipline, both in the realm of the body, through fasting, and in the realm of the mind and spirit, through reflection, prayer, and acts of service. Key lessons. Discipline as a foundation for excellence. Ibn Bājja believed that intellectual excellence cannot be achieved without discipline. Ramadan offers a unique opportunity to practice this discipline, refining both the body and the mind. The role of discipline in achieving wisdom. Discipline is not just about physical restraint, it is about training the mind and soul to focus on higher goals. Ramadan helps individuals build the mental and spiritual discipline necessary for wisdom. 10. The ultimate goal, union with the divine. For Ibn Bājja, the ultimate goal of human existence was to achieve union with the divine, which he conceptualized as the perfect harmony between intellect and virtue. This union is attained when the individual's soul reaches a state of perfection, where the pursuit of wisdom and the practice of virtue are seamlessly integrated. It is through this union that an individual becomes truly free from the distractions of the material world and fully immersed in the pursuit of divine knowledge. Ramadan, in this context, serves as a vehicle for moving toward this ultimate goal. By fasting, Muslims detach from worldly concerns and refocus their energies on spiritual growth. The practices of prayer, reflection, and charity during Ramadan serve as a means of aligning oneself with God's will, purifying the soul, and advancing on the path toward spiritual union. Ibn Bājja's philosophy suggests that this union with the divine is not a passive state but an active pursuit. It requires intellectual rigor, emotional balance, and moral integrity. Ramadan, with its call for self-discipline, reflection, and devotion, offers a structured time for individuals to engage in this pursuit, refining their character and elevating their spiritual awareness. Key lessons. Union with the divine as the ultimate goal. Ibn Bājja's highest ideal was the union of the human soul with divine wisdom. Ramadan serves as a practice that moves individuals closer to this goal, offering a structured opportunity for self-purification and spiritual elevation. Spiritual growth through devotion and discipline. Through the disciplined practices of fasting, prayer, and reflection, Ramadan provides a way for Muslims to achieve a deeper connection with the divine, embodying Ibn Bājja's vision of spiritual perfection. Conclusion: the path to perfection through Ramadan. Ibn Bājja's philosophy offers profound insights into how intellectual and spiritual growth are interconnected. His emphasis on the cultivation of virtues, intellectual excellence, and detachment from material desires aligns closely with the practices of Ramadan. Fasting, reflection, and self-discipline during this holy month provide an opportunity for purification, both of the mind and the soul. By embracing Ibn Bājja's teachings, we can view Ramadan as a time not only for spiritual renewal but also for intellectual elevation. The practices of fasting and self-restraint are powerful tools for achieving a deeper understanding of oneself and one's relationship with the divine. Through the purification of the body, mind, and soul, Ramadan becomes a path to perfection, embodying the very principles that Ibn Bājja espoused in his philosophy.